Hi, so my name is Peter Caillot. I'm product manager at Redis Labs. I work mainly on the modules that we're developing at Redis Labs. But I'm also working on RedisInsight, which is the GUI that was announced this morning as GA. This talk will consist out of two parts. So I will give you some overview of the functionalities and capabilities that are available inside RedisInsight. And the second part, we will bring on stage Marco. Hi, Marco. Who will talk about the Ogma Library, which is a JavaScript library that we use inside RedisInsight to do graph visualization when you work with Redis Graph. But first off, let's kick it off. A GUI for Redis, but why? I've got the Redis CLI. I'm totally happy. Well, what we saw in several surveys within the Redis community, but also with our customers, is that there is actually quite a high demand for a graphical user interface for Redis. There are several tools out of there, and some of them excel in certain features, but there is not kind of like a Swiss Army knife, jack of all trades, that combines all those tools within a single application. And another need that we discovered is with the raise of, by the way, these are our module icons, and there's also a stream icon there. With the rise of more complex data structures, there is also a need for a graphical user interface. For example, let's look at the time series data. If you would request 1,000 temperature samples over a period of time, it might be hard or tough in the CLI to get some to do some analysis or to spot some trends there. While if you would plot that into a chart, it would be easy to see that the weather in the UK is always pretty bad. So we also wanted it to be available on all potential platforms, so also Windows, but also Docker, so that you could effectively take RedisInsight and you could deploy it in your VPC and expose it, for example, as a service. We wanted it to work together with all variants of Redis, so Redis Open Source, Sentinel, and the Cluster API, but also with Redis Enterprise, Redis Cloud, and even other vendors of Redis like Elasticache, and many more to come. But most of all, we want it to be free and available for everybody. So this is the general availability of RedisInsight. I will walk you through several features. It's actually RedisInsight is a combination of separate tools. And each of those tools, they can help you in your development lifecycle while you're developing an application with Redis. So there might be some tools that help you during design phase when you're prototyping, or you try to do a spike, for example. You want to check if certain commands, they will effectively match your expectations or your assumptions. There are some tools that will help you during the implementation phase, for example, while you're debugging your application. It might give you some insights of what's happening inside Redis. And then last, it will help you. There are also some tools available that will help you productionize your application. Apart from this diagram being highly accurate representation of what software development looks like, it might also give away which tool I use to create this slide deck. So the icons on the top right, they're there to indicate in the next tools that I will show you when you can effectively use those tools. So let's kick it off. First one is the browser tool. The browser allows you to browse through the keys within your Redis database. You can also update and manipulate the data. In this example, this was a hash. This is a set. We're adding a member to a set. As you can see, there's also some information at the top that tells you, okay, this specific key is a set. What is the time to live? How much memory is this consuming? So it's effectively a graphical way to explore your key space. Next up is there is support for streams, so you can effectively graphically scroll through all the messages within your stream. But if you're working with consumer groups, you can effectively see which consumer groups are available, which consumers are there, and even if you dig into that, you can see which pending messages they still have to consume. And then you can effectively even acknowledge each of those messages for that specific consumer. We think this might be particularly interesting when you're debugging an application or building an application with streams and consumer groups. There is support for Redis time series, a module that allows you to work with a time series data structure. So it's in this specific use case, we're looking at some CPU metrics. You can obviously click and drag. You can zoom in into the chart. You can change all the UI aspects for the coloring as you like. There's also support for dual axis, so you can enable this, and then you can have a separate scale on both axes to get better results. Also interesting is that you can afterwards download this as a CSV file, or you can actually screen capture this as an image, just as some gadgets give you. Support for Redis Graph. Here we're going to look into an image movie database. We will start off with finding Tom Cruise. Once we found Tom Cruise, we can effectively double-click on each node, and then we will expand to the neighbors of Tom Cruise, which might be, in this case, it's a movie database, so there are actors that are related to movies by having them acted in it. Something that would have been a mission impossible within the Redis CLI because of the complex data structures to view, kind of like becomes now quite satisfying to look at it. And once again, also here, when you found your ideal path or your bacon number you were looking for in this case, you can download this as an SVG or as a PNG. There is support for Redis JSON. JSON allows you to effectively manipulate JSON documents in a single key. And what is particularly interesting, or is interesting in this case, is that it utilizes Redis JSON as its best, right? So it allows you to lazily fetch certain objects. If you have a large JSON document, a couple of megabytes, it's only going to fetch your object, or the object that you're clicking or you're expanding on. Support for Redis search. We're looking at a recipe search index. We're looking for some recipes with bananas. You can, once you found your specific search term, we'll also highlight that. When you click on a command that you executed, you can actually re-execute it, or we will fill the details in the form above, and you can edit it for further details. So in this case, we're going to try to limit the results. We're looking for bananas and apples right now. Some typo there with some feedback for you. In this case now we're looking at 10 results, going to limit it down to 5, and effectively what we can do then is also export this as a CSV file if you would be interested in that. Bulk actions, we're going to look at a screen capture of some renaming of all the keys that actually start with badge, and you want to rename them to badges. Because you had some discussion in your team, and during your implementation phase, you think that's a more appropriate prefix for all your keys. And you already have some RDB files for your, for example, for your testing automation. This one is going to tell you, okay, which keys are you going to update, which commands are you going to execute. It's going to give you a dry run, and once you think that is okay, you can effectively execute it and do the renaming. We think this tool is particularly interesting when you're implementing your application and you can do, you're doing some large refactorings. This is Profiler. Profiler is kind of like the counterpart, or the visual counterpart of the monitoring command in Redis. Will instrument all the commands you execute against Redis for a given time, and that will try to create you a summary of which keys were most accessed, which commands were most frequently executed, which key patterns were effectively most frequently executed. And then you can also drill down and search within all the commands that were executed. So here you see the start of a profiling, and then straight after we can see the results, the summary result with top key patterns, top keys, and top commands. There's a memory analysis tool. So the memory analysis tool is going to scan through your database, the entire database, scan all the keys, and it's going to make a summary, how much keys of each type there are, which key pattern they effectively match, and how much memory they're consuming. And you can then effectively drill down into each of those key patterns, even filter down further. But what's really interesting in this tool is that we're also going to give you some recommendations. So you can notice there's some recommendation with a small icon tree. This one effectively allows you well, it's going to give you some recommendations which are the low-hanging fruit for you to optimize the memory consumption you're using in your productionized data set. In this way, we want to incorporate more and more knowledge inside this tool that we've learned through all the years with Redis. Last but not least, there's a CLI, which is give you some autocomplete, but it's also interesting that you can see the command that you're actually going to execute. You get some information on the top right, what the time complexity is, what the arguments are that you're going to you need to supply for that specific command. So this was just a brief overview of all the features and tools that are available inside RedisInsight. I hope it was enough of a teaser for you to go ahead and download it. Once again, it's available entirely free. As you might have noticed, there's kind of like a small feedback icon at the bottom. So you can report any bugs or any feature requests, and we'll be more than happy to receive those and to receive your feedback. The last slide that I have is that I want to tell you a bit about what's coming up or what we still want to do with this tool. So we kind of like want to create some graphical command builders for each data structure by effectively leveraging the knowledge that we can find within your data set. So just as a simple example, in Redis search, each schema has a certain index. You could leverage that schema to make you more to effectively make you a graphical command builder, say, hey, this is a numerical field, and will help you create your query. You want to add in more baked-in best practices. So as an example, we could look at your graph schema, and we could give you some graph modeling tips. And then we also envision some interactive getting started guides. So think about kind of like a Jupyter Notebook type of style where you can execute certain commands against the database you're working with. But they will kind of like tell you a compelling story. So as an example, it could be how do you do predictive maintenance with two of our modules, Redis AI and Redis Time Series. And that's it. With that, I hand it over to Marco, who will talk more about Ogma.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Today I'm here to talk about graph visualization and how I think is a key to reveal and prevent dangerous situations and help you make better decisions. In this talk, I will show you a demo and that will show how Ogma graph visualization can help you empower your end user with their own data. To start, the agenda for today is I'll try to explain why I think it's important to visualize a network. And then we'll dive into a little graph visualization, visual investigation made with Ogma and Redis Graph. At the end, I will talk about the Ogma Library, just a short feature overview. I work for a company called Lincurious. It's a company based in Paris, French company, and it provides world-class graph intelligence platform for analysts for crime investigations, and is partner of Redis, and it provides a solution built on top of graph databases that makes easier for analysts and investigators to perform their job. We leverage graph databases, and that's why I'm here today to support the development of Redis Graph. Typical use cases of our products are anti-fraud, anti-money laundering, finding terrorist networks, and finding cyber threats. And what these four use cases have in common is that in all these use cases, analysts are looking for patterns, especially connection patterns. And that's where graph technology becomes important. Graph technology helps you have a single view of information that's usually scattered in different silos. And providing this single view makes you emerge patterns that then you can use to perform your job. So based on this, we build graph visualization, and graph visualization is that thing that helps you understand that the customer you have on the right is a fraudster, because what you see in between is basically that path is the information you need to understand whether it's a good customer or not. So connecting the dots is very important, and usually this information is scattered all around, and you're passing your time trying to find where it is and try to connect, while graph databases, and especially graph visualization, helps you realize that. So we jump into the demo. But before I will talk about Ogma, it's a JavaScript graph visualization library built by Lincurious. It's a powerful library already included inside RedisInsight, so that's what you have. and helps you visualize networks up to, well, more than 100,000 nodes and edges in a web browser using WebGL technologies. You can also use it for your application to visualize your own graphs, and it helps you, it helps you visualize data without too much problems when you have very complex data sets. So let's talk about the demo. We work with the Redis Labs team to build this demo. And we're going to use Redis Graph instance, a Redis Graph driver server side. We use a Node.js driver. And then the Ogma library for the front-end visualization. In this demo, you will find entities of interest, explore data, reveal sophisticated graph patterns, and in the future, with integration of Redis Graph inside the Graph Intelligence platform, you will also automate this process. So you will have automate pattern detection. But let's see about the data. The data we're going to use in the demo is based off the Offshore Leaks database, which is a database created by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. And it contains hundreds of thousands of offshore entities. So let me jump directly to the demo. If I can ask to switch to the demo. OK, that's great. So imagine I'm now an investigator. And I'm looking for Wilbur Ross, the US Commercial Secretary of Commerce. And he probably owns $2 billion of financial assets in the Cayman Islands. So what I did was loading this data set inside Redis Graph, and I built this query together with the Redis Labs team. In this query, you see we're going to use both the Redis search module in the first line here. So we use full text search. And then we use the power of the Redis Graph pattern matching with Cypher. So here it's a pattern matching. Basically, I'm going to describe what kind of pattern I'm looking inside the graph database. I'm filtering by Cayman Islands, so I can look for only entities in that country. So let's search for Wilbur Ross and send the data to the graph. OK, we got a match. As you see here, the name of the node is different from what I searched, but Redis search was good enough to find it and find all the connections on the graph. And we see that Wilbur Ross set up various companies around him, helped by Appleby Trust. So there is a group here, the Ross group, and also another group here, the group Tahir. Let's try to dig a little bit more. As Peter shown before in RedisInsight, we can double-click and a query will be sent to the database, and then we fetch more data. Here, there are more administrators of this Ross Group company and more locations. I said before here there was another group. In between this group and Wilbur Ross, there is another company. Let's try to look for this company. OK. We got more data from the server. And you see here a pattern emerges. So two administrators are shared between the two companies as a location as well. So this pattern is very important because it makes you understand that there is something strange with that thing going on. So what you can do is either improve your Cypher query here based on this information, or maybe you can focus your investigations only on this side. So let's try now to expand these other nodes. OK, we got many more companies, and also these other nodes. OK, we see that more patterns are emerging here. So shared companies are like coming back from the graph database. But you see, after 4 only expand, the graph is starting to be very big. So it's quite easy to get lost. What we can do about that? That's why I put here a custom button that's using an Ogma feature. And this magic merge button will simplify a little bit the graph. This is tailored for a specific goal. So I will only focus on people now. So I will magic merge all the companies and create another topology. So I will change the data schema I'm presenting to the end user. And I'm showing here the connection between people. These are indirect connections made now direct connections. And this operation can be rolled back. So I will come back to the previous graph. And that's very useful for analysts. So in case they want to see a bigger graph, then see the patterns and drill down to details. Okay, if I came back to the presentation. Okay. So more Ogma features, some of them you will find inside RedisInsight already. For others, in case you want to build an app, they will be available. And graph layouts are available for present your data in different ways. There is not just a single solution to visualize graphs, so your use case may change. That's why the library is available. Analysis tools let you discover patterns inside your graph data, inside topologies. Transformation is what we used before to merge. So you can change topologies based on some criteria you can define based on your business. Geomode is available and make you show a map underneath a graph. We just released a new version with many more capabilities for Geomode. Advanced styling, as you see, you can use images and advanced stuff for both nodes and edges. Graph edits let you live editing your graph, and you have events to respond back to the database, and interactions, which of course is very important when you visualize a network because it lets you user investigate. You have highlight, dragging, and so on and so forth. So Redis Graph and Ogma is available today, and you can already combine the two as I did in this demo. The Linkurious Enterprise Graph Intelligence Platform will be released soon, an integration with Redis Graph. And that's it.